What's up, fellow Lords of Gaming, and welcome back to another episode of Marvel Future Fight. So today I'm going to jump right in and I'm going to give you the slip dirty for Enchantress and Angela. I'm combining these two just because first impressions, these are hard skips. I don't think that these uniform options, these uniforms are really good for free-to-play players to play. To be honest with you, if I wasn't, making content, these would be uniforms that I would skip at writ large. So let me explain and jump in real quick. We'll start off with Enchantress. Enchantress does gain a T3, so she will be a little bit more powerful. But when you look at her uniform, one of the things that you're going to run up against is you're going to pay the 1,000 crystals to just purchase her, but then to go for the uniform upgrade, you're essentially having to purchase biometrics for this character, or you're going to have to purchase the mega uniform upgrade ticket. Now, is it a bad thing to purchase a mega uniform upgrade ticket? No. Do you want to be purchased for a character like Enchantress? I highly doubt it. She's also got pretty terrible uniform options. Well, I won't say terrible, but let's take a look at them. So you essentially get Moon Knight and Arachnite, and then Cable is the next one. I don't know what the other two uniform options are right off the bat. I'm gonna imagine if I had to just like pull them up, they'd be bad. Like, there's no way in my imagination that Enchantress has uniform options that are good. I just can't imagine it. I don't think that is a good thing for you to do. It's just a really weird place to be in for the character overall. Now, I will say that if you're reviewing her kit overall, it's not a bad kit. Pretty easy rotations to play. We'll take a look at those real quick. Really simple rotation, 3-4-5, and then 6-3-4-5. So 6, 3, 4, 5. Not a whole lot in terms of what you need to do to play the character. So for a lot of the just casual type players, really easy rotations to run through on the character. There's not a whole lot of problem there. She's got a nice kit as well. So her first skill and ability, she's got snare, which does nothing. Second ability does have an interesting effect on it, so you're gonna probably end up rotating into this skill at some point because it does have charm on the second skill. It does have recovery, which is plus 50% of the damage over time and a max of 20%. That's the first time I've ever seen that on a character kit before. That's on this one. So I imagine that you're gonna want to rotate that into the kit, which is weird that it's not in there already for 6-3-4-5. It really is weird to me that it's not there, specifically because you can just go and just cancel out of it and you're good. So you're probably gonna want to rotate this into the skill kit at some point. So maybe it's off cooldown 3, 4, 5, and you're rotating through like that, or then you go 6, 3, 4, 5, and you have that is there. Now, she's got decrease all basic defenses on her third skill, which also has the accumulation on the skill. White Thorn Explosion, her fourth skill, has mind control, paralysis, and 100% chance to grant all damage immunity with the 40-41 frenzy buff. And then on her fifth skill, you get another 20% HP recovery and mind resistance decrease by 60%, which also ignores immunity. So it's pretty nice. Her tier 3 skill is also not too shabby to look at, to be honest with you, right? Snare, mind control, 80% chance to penetrate, invincible, and then a frenzy buff on that skill as well for 35, 1, and 35. So you get a really good rotation, a really impactful rotation throughout all. 6, 3, 4, 5, a lot easier to rotate through than a lot of combos we've seen before. Now, the problem that I have with Enchantress's uniform, outside of just the cost of the uniform or where she sits, is the uniform effect. This is essentially what you're purchasing the character for. She's a support type character, right, based on the uniform, but it only applies to supervillain allies. And increase all basic attack by 20 and increase basic damage dealt to boss types by 40 is pretty nice, essentially, but you're gonna really have to pair out whether or not this is a character that really needs to be in your roster. So when I say that, I'm specifically looking at characters that you would be playing with in like World Boss. So I know Jean is one of the heavier hitters in the game currently for like Giant Boss Raid, but most people are running a Ghost Panther Polaris type setup with her. And does that beat out Enchantress? I would argue probably those buffs, those support buffs, are a little bit better. That's just me from what I remember right now. For me, for instance, my normal rotations are going to be Black Bolt, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Miles, and Thor. And Thor will probably end up being replaced by Odin because of his power and when they fix the bugs in his kit. But essentially, with the character, I usually run Medusa and Morgan Le Fay. And so let's take a look at Morgan Le Fay's uniform really quickly, because I think it's important to look at hers. She's a tier 3 who has the same type of leadership or same type of uniform effect buff. Universal type allies increase all basic attacks by 35 and increase basic damage dealt to boss types by 35. So the basic attack is like, you know, it's going to go down in terms of you're losing out with Enchantress by about 15%, and you lose about 5% here, but you also get to remove all debuff effect with Morgan Le Fay inside your class kit here. So it's not a bad ability to have with Morgan Le Fay there. I don't think that I'd rotate her out from, you know, my current playthrough with Black Bolt. What you're also, so you're gonna really have to look at what the mileage is for your character, you know, overall. Do you like Ghost Panther paired up with Jean, as well as having Polaris in there, so that way she can provide the buff? So like, for instance, when we look at excuse me, can't even pronounce right now, but when we look at Polaris, for Jesus Christ, so when we look at Polaris and we go to her skills, we basically get the passive on here. She applies to all mutant allies, where she gets the increased supervillain faction by 45 and 35. It's a really nice passive buff on the character, right? And then on the same token, she's also in the lead because she provides all mutant allies and increase all basic attacks by 45%. So that's really, really nice. I don't know that you're passing on that. You know what I mean? Like, I find it hard to believe that you're going to pass on it. So one of the characters, I haven't ranked him up yet, I don't think, to get him to be used with Jean, because I don't really use Jean that much. But then you have Ghost Panther sitting over here, and he's a really nice character because his passive buff, he gains to all allies. He increased that fire damage by 55 and then 45 and 15 for supervillain faction. So you're comparing that to using a character like Enchantress and teaming her up, and I don't see a whole lot of value there. You know what I mean? Like, if I had to gauge, I'd say no, I'm not going to use that character overall. Now, when we get to Angela, the story changes up a little bit because Angela's kit is a little bit weird. So I'm going to start there. So let's go into the practice combo here really quickly, right? And so that way you can see what it is. So her first, we'll just go with this one, 3, 4, 5, right? 3, 4. Do you see how long that combo is? That combo is extremely long. It's a little off-putting too, because if I was to just cast the 4th skill, you can essentially see I'm almost waiting for the whole 4th skill to play out before I can cancel that skill. So I'm essentially going 3, 4, wait for the entirety of that skill to cancel out. And even I just messed up just there. Even after she landed, I still messed up. So let's try it one more time. 3, 4, and then you just wait. She's down on the ground and everything before you finally get to cast that 5th skill. Now, the importance of this is because when you look at Angela's kit, so there's nothing on her 2 and her 1 skill. They're dead skills. Heaven's Sword and Merciless Assassin, they don't have anything on them. So then you look at her 3rd skill, and she basically gets bleed, decrease, and this is where Invincible, and she gets her Frenzy buff is on her 3rd skill. So increase all basic attack is on there for 30, 1, and 20. But the important part is that her accumulation is on this 4th skill. So that accumulation lasts for 9 seconds. So she gets all the accumulation silenced inside here, and then her 5th skill, she gets a recovery of 30% HP for 5, and she gets the increased basic damage by 50% for 1 attack. But the important part about it is that look at how long the 4th skill needs to play. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. You're essentially almost at 4 seconds. So half of your skill or half of your accumulation effect is essentially done before you even start popping into that 5th skill. And the 5th skill has it's got a pretty long animation cycle inside there. You can see that, right? There's a pretty substantial, so maybe only half of your 5th skill is going to benefit from the accumulation effect in here with this combo. 3, 4, you're running, she slams, and then you can finally go, and by the time that skill runs out, you're essentially you're not getting any of that end effect that you're going for the buff. So really weird skill effect inside there. Now, Angela's uniform effect basically brings her in as to be like a DPS support, where she could probably be a damage dealer inside. Oh, by the way, the skills don't look all that great to me. The 5th skill looks cool, but the rest of the skills remind me of like 2018 era Marvel Future Fight. And that's one of the reasons why I'm like, okay, you only gave her a uniform, you didn't give her tier 3, you didn't give her tier 4. There's argument to say that you probably should have just gave her tier 4. Even though you gave Odin tier 4, you should probably gave her tier 4 as well, and let the players choose for who they want it for, so that way she at least gets the bonus. But she gets the superhero allies super increased basic damage dealt to super villains for 40%, so essentially she becomes a support style character. But then we have to start looking at her uniform options. First off the bat, Yelena Belova. Yelena Belova, guess what? This is a character you're gonna have to pay biometrics for. So you either pay the biometrics price or you pay the $30.99 for the mega uniform upgrade ticket. Either way, it's expensive already, right? So Yelena Belova, bad uniform option there. Mostly, I'm not saying bad, because if you like Yelena Belova, then great, you know, no problem, you're gonna purchase that uniform. But it's just essentially a costly update for this uniform, where you don't even see orders of magnitude power bonuses to say this character will last outside of a support type role. Then we get Captain Britain Hellfire Gala. This isn't a bad uniform for Captain Britain at all, or for Psylocke. It's a good uniform. I really wish that they would Marvel Future Fight would lean on the comics some more, because there's been a lot of updates lately to, you know, uniforms and things like that they could have played off of, especially with the Hellfire Gala for a number of characters. So not a bad uniform. But then, look at where we go here. Corvus Glaive. Corvus Glaive. Yes, Corvus Glaive. Like, that's who we're gonna get, and it's not even his newest uniform. It's an old uniform. Do you want to upgrade this uniform? This is a native tier 2 character. Look at these uniform options. Like, this is Rogue, Age of, like, this is what you're going to be essentially paying. I can tell you right now, this would be a costly upgrade for you. It'd be a costly upgrade for you. So hard to say there. So that's 2 bad options, right? Then we get Cersei. Cersei's not a bad uniform option. She's not meta or anything like that. So it's not a bad uniform. I don't know a lot of players, you know, using Cersei. She might have some play in Otherworld Battle if they decide to do like a team where we could essentially pay a team, because she buffs the Eternal Allies, but that's the problem, and she only affects Eternal Allies. So unless, you know, you just happen to have Thena and you happen to have Icarus doing the work, just weird, right? So it's a support buff uniform. So not a bad uniform if you like Cersei, if you like the Eternals, but so we'll leave that alone. But then we get to Spider-Man Far From Home. Like, how many uniforms have we had since this Far From Home uniform? It's just really weird to see this Far From Home uniform jump in here, and you're just, what the hell? So you get a very expensive uniform for a potential transcendent character with a really wonky kit in terms of rotation. It's sort of like Malekith, right, where they give him the really long delayed 11-second cooldown on that 4th skill. This makes no sense to me with the windup. Like, you just have to let the 4th skill play completely out before you can come out of it and move into your 5th skill. I don't know. I don't get it. Maybe it's something I'm missing. I'll end up having to play, like I said, it's my first impression. But first impression tells me that Angela and Enchantress are hard skip. If you need support characters, fine. I could see potentially doing, like, you know, keeping, getting her to Transcendence and then using her with a CTP of Insight. So that way she can buff Odin, who's currently bugged and not receiving buffs from characters. And then putting somebody like, you know, thematic in the mix with Odin, so that way he can get like elemental damage, or, you know, he can get us another buff off them. Like, when are they going to upgrade Richard? I don't know. But there's other buff type things you can go. But I can't use Enchantress because she's only super villain ally. So it is what it is. I'm not a really big fan of what they currently did with Enchantress and Angela. I think these are skip uniforms unless you just absolutely seem to need support type characters. But trust me, there are better support type characters than the two of these characters inside the game. Just keep that in mind. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time, peace.